So food was always like, a big part of us growing up. My parents used to, make me try eclectic things like, say, sushi or like a medium rare steak. Dad used to take me, to the, butcher shop and every time we'd go, we'd try a new kind of offal, So one time it would be beja, one time we'd pick up tripe, one time we'd pick up paya. And back then there weren't that many recipe books, so like, there was no YouTube, TV barely showed any of these things. So there was a lot of, trial cooking, trial and error at home. I think what this really essentially did for me was two things. One is that it created a slightly thinking palate. It also created a very fearless palate, where I wasn't closed-minded to anything until I'd had it 2 or 3 or 4 times, and I was very sure, as to what tastes good and what doesn't taste good, or what works and doesn't work. One big advantage of my mom's career was that in the later part of her career, she kind of moved from food critiquing and food writing to publishing. A byproduct of that was great access to books. And one day she came back with she used to always, go to the company sale, and she would get a carton of cookbooks and things like that. And one day she gave me this book about this guy who's eaten a cobra heart. And it was Anthony Bourdain's A Cook's Store, Anthony Bourdain introduced me to the chef I respect and admire the most, which is a gentleman called Fergus Henderson. And he runs a restaurant in London called St. John. And there are, again, a lot of roots and similarities in what he does is that he really wants to promote British cuisine over there, and by British, like things like steak and kidney pie and Yorkshire pudding and, trifle and very traditional cooking. But the other really major aspect of what really drew me to him was, and again, this comes from like my father taking me to the butcher shop and us, doing experiments with offal. He introduced the world to nose-to-tail dining. He wrote the seminal text on nose-to-tail dining. It was this one thing that he kind of had to say, and I might not be quoting him in those exact words, but he always has believed that, and this is how he puts it, if you're going to cull or butcher or slaughter an animal, the only decent thing to do is to then eat the entire animal, and not be wasteful. And of course, he's the chef that introduced roasted bone marrow to the world, and Anthony Bourdain in that sense was pretty much a lot of, cooking school for me, because all the things that you saw on his show, all the chefs you read about, all the things that he wanted to eat, everything from, pho to buncha to ramen on one side. What it kind of led me to explore was that while I was doing copywriting, on my free time, I'd, go to the local butcher, or I'd find out, what the best pork farm around is. And like one of Fergus Henderson's signature dishes is a roasted pig head. And I actually found a butcher, I found a farm. Me and my cousin, we went and bought an entire pig's head. Then we butchered the whole thing at home in our kitchen. We had to buy a saw. Then we sawed it, and then we roasted the whole thing. Then I went to Bombay for work, and that was a very major switch in my thinking, was because if Delhi is a great life and it teaches you to be passionate about things, which is why I always say I'm Bengali by blood, but I'm a Delhiite at heart, because my heart is very much a Dilliwala in that sense, I'm generous, I'm hospitable, I love feeding people, which is a big part of, Delhi culture, joint families and Diwali celebrations and Holi parties, or, weekend barbecues on people's backyards and rooftops. if that part was my heart, I think I learned to make my mind more driven and professional in Bombay. And what kind of happened was that, of course, advertising career was going great and all of that. A year later, I suddenly read that Chef Auroni is opening up the kitchen for this promotion called One Night Stand Chef, where he let you do a menu and he kind of let you take over the kitchen for a Monday night. For some reason, I seem to have made an impression on this really big chef in the city. And at the end of that dinner, it was a really successful dinner. I managed to pull off an eclectic enough menu for chef to basically take me out at the end of the evening, offer me a smoke and say, listen, I don't know what you're doing in advertising, but I have to figure out a way to pull you out of that. That was one very, crucial and inspiring moment for me. It was a combination of those things which kind of really convinced me that this is not just a passion for me. It is something a lot more than that. And the fact that someone who's been doing this for years, has been trained in the best kitchens, has gone and studied in a European cooking school, La Roche in Switzerland, that a person like that can come and tell me that, listen, I don't know, but I have to figure this out for you. That really meant a lot to me. And that's where I just then said, okay, I need to figure out a way to dive in. The Salt House was, I think, just an accumulation of just a lot of circumstances, in one sense. Both professional and personal for me, The professional side was that I was 2 years into quitting advertising full-time. I started by doing a small pop-up called Grandma Mookerjee's Kitchen, which was, modern Bengali food, because I trained in a European kitchen, but my heart still lay in my grandmother's, cooking. I used to run this small table of 4, very high-end, very exclusive pairing with, wines and cocktails. And every night I used to get about 4 diners, and every menu was new. The only conscious decision I made at that point was that, yes, now I've understood what my voice is culinarily. How do I understand the larger aspects of the business? That's when, me and some friends who were from the food business as well, we hatched this brand called the Curry Brothers. The joke coming from, it was 3 of us, and Josh, the other chef, was also a bearded chef. And he was Goan, I was Bengali. It was like East India meets West India, kosha mangsho meets pork vindaloo, chorizo pav meets kathi roll. So it worked really well. I guess that, after a few years, those next steps I really wanted to take, And keeping that in mind, when Chef Auroni said, listen, there's a project come up in Calcutta. I don't know, seems like you need a break. Go check it out. And that's where the Salt House kind of came about. So I came here, met Prachi and Saloni, and spent some time with them, and we realized that there were a lot of similarities in terms of what we felt about food, about what we feel an eatery should be or shouldn't be. I think the other aspect that really kind of opened up in my mind was that all that inspiration that was Grandma Mookerjee's kitchen for me was suddenly all those ideas, all those potential, it just exploded in my mind, because I went and ate at Pice Hotels, I went to Zakaria Street, I went to Maniktola, Machir Bazaar. I started exploring and, checking out all these things. And that's where I kind of realized that, Calcutta, food-wise, was really inspiring me. My entire team currently in Calcutta, I started by peeling potatoes for them in the Zoe kitchen. So Mintu, who's my head of kitchen and like my right-hand man, and I mean, I depend on him for everything, you know. He basically started off as a dishwasher. The most important thing was that Pachi, Saloni and the stakeholders really, you know, have put a lot of trust and faith in me. We're operating, I mean, 7,000 to 8,000 square feet. That's as large as standalone operations, you know, restaurants get. I genuinely believe the best restaurants need to have a strong financial backbone. Just like any form of art needs patronage. If I want our cuisine to be just a little more than a, you know, really popular menu, if I want to maybe try and have a tug of war with diners in the city and change their opinions about certain things, I also need to have a very, you know, strong business. The fact that the stakeholders here want a Michelin star in 5 years, they want to be one of the best restaurants in the country, let alone the best restaurant in the city, you know. They want this place to be a culinary jewel because, you know, even for them, it's passion. It's not about the business only. Our most popular menu item is our Hazelnut Mousse, which is basically just French biscuit, a lot of really good Belgian chocolate and Nutella. I'm telling you honestly, Nutella, because sometimes that's a flavor which just diners want, and you know, you can't better that. Just like that is our most popular dessert or selling item. At the same time, we also have a truffle risotto, but we make that with a mix of quinoa and local millets, you know. And that is the kind of balance that I'm trying to find. There's so many good regional mushrooms available right now because the monsoon has come about, you know. So that's what's going into making the stock. The garnish on top is pan-roasted dudh mushrooms. We're doing our own eggs, and a farm is just literally, you know, producing 60 to 70 eggs every day for us. I was just in the bazaar the other day, and you know, we picked up magur mach, and what's the other mach? Sure, it's like magur. Shingi mach. So we got shingi mach and magur mach, and we filleted them because these are all techniques that we've learned and we know how to do easily. And then we thought, why not make fish tacos with this? Because everybody, I mean, catfish tacos are such a staple, you know, in Southern America. All our procurement, all our ingredients over here, it was a really, you know, long journey to figure out. I still don't think we figured it out, and mostly it's because the way we operate our kitchen is unheard of in Calcutta, unless maybe you're a 5-star hotel. Over the months we launched, a lady came and introduced herself and said, I've just started a fledgling microgreen business and I'm growing microgreens off rooftops. And I was like, okay, this is interesting, but you know, I don't want to use microgreens as something ornamental. I've always believed that each one of these greens has such a fresh flavor and such a unique flavor. Now, how can you incorporate that as a part of your cuisine or your cooking? And then I realized that Calcutta loves its chochuri, and there's so many types of leaves and greens in it, you know. But there's also all these forms of datas. You know, there's cauliflower data, there's mulo data, there's radish data, and they all have such a unique flavor. So then I asked her, do you think you can create microgreen versions of all these greens as well? So, you know, over a few months, I suddenly had purple and pink radish microgreens, which, you know, remind you of mulot data. At the same time, it tastes a lot like rocket or arugula. So, you know, we started replacing rocket and arugula in a lot of our local salads, or local ingredient inspired salads, and switch that. Or for example, we do, lobster ravioli is a really popular dish. I don't want to use frozen lobster tails. So you get great bagda or golda chingdi over here. We do chingdi agnolotti or chingdi ravioli, and then we serve it with baby kolmi and lal shag. You know, because chingdi and shage chochuri is such a, you know, favorite combination. That idea for me came from eating the kochupada chingdi at Kosturi, you know. So again, pairing local greens with, local seafood or fish, When we discussed the philosophy of the restaurant, it was going to be about things being crafted, things being handmade. And when you're doing things that are crafted and handmade, you need to look into even the tiniest of the detail. And, that's where I think I'd like to be proud and say that, ours is a restaurant which actually looks into things down to each grain of salt, and that's how handmade and handcrafted our food is. And thus the Salt House. It's going to be about a year now, next month, that I've spent in Calcutta. And, I've always believed in baby steps. So we've set up the restaurant, people seem to be really enjoying the food. People seem to be saying a lot of good things about us. And I only just want to continue with that momentum, So right now we've got our food down. We've begun to explore, a slightly more eclectic menu, exploring, more local ingredients. And the next aspect is to, start with the bar, which is a few months away. And, I want to start doing wine pairings. I want to do speakeasy cocktails. We want to start making our own bitters, We have a Gondoraj bitters in mind, which we've been R&Ding for a long time, and we just can't wait to serve it to people. When I use the phrase Calcutta, I say Calcutta, not Kolkata, because that is the cuisine that, inspires us over here. The chicken a la Kievs, the stroganoffs, the roasts, the Sunday roasts, sauce work. Hopefully we can help put Calcutta, on the culinary map. And that's what we want to spend the next, 4 or 5 years doing. And we're going to be working very hard towards doing that. Afternoon, I'm Auroni Mookerjee and I'm the chef at the Salt House.
Hi, I'm Prachi Saraugi. Welcome to the Salt House. This is a journey for the last 4 years. We started our construction somewhere in 2014. When we came to the space, the building was also not ready. And we literally have put together brick and mortar out here. We love the rooftop. We wanted to bring something which was not there in Calcutta. Both of us have studied abroad and travel a lot. And we always came back and asked one question that we want to go to a space where we could be here from morning to evening.
Hi, I'm Saloni Jhunjhunwala. And so pretty much what Prachi said, we started with the idea of having this restaurant where people could come, they could work, they could just hang out with their friends or just have a nice meal, focusing a lot of course on good.
A Michelin star restaurant where we are doing something which is unique. One of the things about Michelin star is that you have to use a lot of local produce. And we obviously, it's hard to use only local produce, but we want to in our future, as much from cheese to like growing our own vegetables or microgreens out here. But also we don't want to be targeting ourselves as a very fine dining space.
Yeah, because people come here with the idea that the food is going to be, might be very expensive and the place is a fine dining restaurant. But we've always focused on basically just of course space has to look good, but it is a cafe format. You can just come in your shorts, but still, considering that Michelin stars are given to street food carts also, why not aim for the stars?
And Auroni is really passionate about food, and that definitely translates onto our plates.
Imagine this to be a factory assembly line, So if I'm shouting out an order over here, each station has their responsibilities and their duties. Fish nikaliye kaise karte hain? Come, I'll show you the restaurant. If that is our assembly line, this is our prep area, एक minute, So this is our butchering station. All our fresh meat, fish, everything is butchered here, and we are very particular about how we package as well. So everything is wrapped properly. This is a finished roulade, so that's stuffed with herbs and vegetables. I genuinely believe in vacuum packing. So what this does is that this ensures that we don't have to freeze the fish.
So the moment it comes in, it's going to retain its freshness even though it's been filleted and processed completely. But it ensures we don't have to freeze anything. We even make our own mince. So all our burger patties, there is a proportion of meat to fat. And that's the most important thing, which is that our butcher doesn't just send us meat. We buy fat also on the side, and we've done R&D. So our mutton proportions are 85 to 15%. 85% lean meat, 15% kidney fat. What goes into a galoti kebab or a kakori kebab. This was like this one cheat I learned from, Lucknowi food in that sense. And even with our chicken burger, all of that, everything is minced here. We rather use chicken leg, duck meat, over white meat. And we put smoked paprika in it. So it gives it this, bacony richness which, otherwise would be there.